Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, and I'm continuing my build here, this project of the Estes Sentinel. Now, if you recall, my original bag was somewhat incomplete, and I said I needed to order some parts. Well, they have arrived, and let's take a look at what I got. Let's see, first of all, I've got a replacement parachute. This one is a nylon one. It is a thin mill one. So it should be pretty light, pretty strong, pretty capable of doing what needs to be done here. I got an 18-inch one, so this should be plenty big. Again, I'm not entirely sure how big the other one was. Probably should have measured it. I could have measured it at some point. It looks like, looks like it's 18 inches, so that's great. So this ought to be a nice replacement. Don't need that for a while though. I did get a nose cone, and it happens to fit my BT60 here. It fits nicely. This little bit of the tube got a little chewed up over the years, so I'm going to leave the nose cone in there to try to straighten that out. So that's going to go off to the side for a moment. And the other thing worth mentioning here is I got a baffle kit for a variety of reasons. So I'm actually going to build this first. I got this from Rocketarium, which you could certainly make these yourself. They're not like wildly complicated. You do need at least to get an adapter. This is basically the exact same piece that you would use as a coupling to connect two body tubes. So it fits in here. It's snug, but not like impossible to work with. So this is going to go in the tube. Generally, these work very nicely if you do need to couple two tubes together. So I could cut this in half and then use this, but I should be able to get this in far enough into the tube so that I can just push it in. Now it's going to be a little hard because I can only reach so far, but I'm not terribly concerned about that. So that's what I'm going to end up using. Rocketarium's kits are pretty nice because, among other things, they do have some kind of like modular bits that they include, and each little module has its own instructions, which is pretty nice. These are pretty straightforward. So, what do I need? I need some wood glue. I got that. That's pretty much it. The way it works is, you can see there's two bulkheads here. One's going to go at one end, one's going to go at the other, but you can see the holes in the middle line up. So the gases are going to go in through this side, and they're going to go out through the other side. The gases won't have any trouble going through the coupling here. But if there are any embers or bits of burning gunpowder, the likelihood that they can wend their way through is pretty low. The drawback to these is that it does require a little bit of extra weight, and over time this can get crudded up so that it doesn't properly transfer the air, but that I'm not too worried about that. This is fairly reliable. Alright, so in any event, what do we need to do? We need to put the screw in here. That should be pretty straightforward. This, by the way, is what I'm going to be replacing the motor mount with, since I don't have the elastic band anymore. So in any event, I'm just going to screw it in by hand. There you go. And I'm going to do it about halfway. And then I'm going to unthread it. And then I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this. Honestly, I mean, just putting the screw in probably ought to be plenty. But having the glue will just make it a little bit stronger. And that's fine. The instructions caution you that you should get about an eighth of an inch through on the other side. That's that's more or less the whole way up the threads on this side, so good enough. And I'm just going to kind of smear the glue out, and on that side as well. If you wanted to, you could probably put a little bit of glue there, but no problem. All right, now the rest of this build is pretty straightforward. All you need to do is get these pieces just inside the coupler. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue here. I want to be really careful not to get any glue on the outside of this, though. That would make it much harder to get into the rocket body if that happens. want to be kind of careful about this. All right, that's in, and I'm just going to push down gently to get it set. Good enough. Yeah, and then it says that the outer surface of the plate should be a little bit inside, so you can put a fillet on it. I'm not really going to worry about that. This doesn't, I can make a fillet on the inside here. I'm just going to, there is a little bit of squeezed out glue, so I'm just going to use my finger to spread that out. Let's actually get a paper towel. So again, I do not want to get any of this on the outside, so let's actually be careful about that. So you certainly could push this in a little farther and put a fillet around this. I'm not terribly worried about that. Same deal here. On the other end of it, I'm going to put the other part, the one that I put the hook into. This one I can't just plop down, of course, because I have the screw. So, whoops, ooh, that's way too far. Well, bummer. Having the eye hook there at least makes it easy to pull it out. All right. Since the instructions actually do call for it, right? I will put a fillet on this, partially because I just pushed it in farther than I meant to anyway. But this part does need to have some strength in it because it has the eye hook in it, so it's going to be taking some shock when everything uncoils during flight. Okay. So unfortunately in doing this, I got some glue just the way I was pushing it like into the holes in this. That doesn't really matter, but I would like it kind of clean. So let's see if we can't mop it up a little bit. Actually, you know what I'm going to use? I'm going to use my scrap here. I'm just going to kind of spin this around in the hole, and that ought to clean it up pretty nicely. Alright. There, that ought to do. Alright, great. I'm going to put that aside. We won't need that for a bit, but that is ready to go. Alright, now the other thing I need to do in this particular video is I need to deal with the fins. So they're all cut out, they're kind of sanded, I mean not thoroughly. What I do need to do with them is I need to shape them. I don't think I'm going to round, well, I'm not going to airfoil anything, but I don't think I'm going to round these ones. I don't think it's really worth it. They're mostly decorative. And if you wanted to, I mean, you certainly could, but you definitely need to sand them down on all the sides because since this was die cut rather than laser cut, you're not going to end up with as nice a cut necessarily. They're not going to be as uniform necessarily. So we do need to sand them together in order for the pieces all to have the same size. Some of these are not quite identical. That's better. So I would usually do this anyway, but just to get the burrs out, this was laser cut. Here though, I definitely need to do this to get everything the same. You can see here, the tips, the leading edge, they're not even close. And this one even still has a little bit of a burr sticking out of it. They're still... Actually, I'm going to grab a piece of sandpaper to do this because that was actually kind of a little hard to handle. That's better. Back, yeah, this little bit on the back I should probably do as well. So they look better, although these two the two on the edges are a little bit taller than the ones in the middle. So let's go over that again. Alright. Actually, I didn't quite sand it smoothly either. Alright, that's better. Alright, so those are good. I'm not going to do anything more with those. These guys, again, I'm going to sand the root edge, part that gets glued to the rocket. Sand that flat. Okay. Ooh, that's not straight at all. I don't know entirely why. I must not have been sanding completely vertically, but that is not straight. This side is taller, so I need to make sure. I'm going to try to make sure I'm holding this perfectly vertically. I must not have been when I sanded it. That's not right. Let's try it again. Better, I guess, but not by much. Alright, well, it seems to be the back quarter, like of this one, so I'm going to just try to focus sanding just on that. Yeah, that looks better. Alright, the root edge really needs to be level, right? Because if it's not, you're not going to get a good, it's not going to attach nicely to the rocket, and that would certainly be a problem. Try to smooth it out a little bit more. Makes me kind of wonder if my table isn't flat. And it certainly is a vintage table, so I guess that could be the case too. Alright, well, that's better. Now I'm not going to bother sanding the other sides like that because I'm going to round them all. So here we go. Yep. Got some sawdust in there still. So I'm going to round all these, not the root edge, of course. That can't be rounded because then it wouldn't attach properly. So I'm going to start with like 15 times going around the edge here to try to take it off. And then we'll see how well I did. Wow, this is shaggy. So what I'm going to do even before that is I'm just going to run the sanding block just kind of over it like so to get rid of any of the wood grain fibers. And then we'll take a peek. So the front and the back, you can look down that. They look fine. The middle frequently I under sand, but that actually looks pretty good too. So 15 or so passes seem to work. Your mileage may vary. It certainly depends on the grit and how new the sandpaper is. Okay, and I'm not bothering, I didn't bother to collectively sand these along the other three edges because I'm going to round them all, so that kind of takes care of the process. Alright. That's a little pointy. And the middle actually, sometimes, like I said, the middle doesn't get sanded too well. The middle didn't get sanded particularly well here. So I'm just going to try to hit the middle. See if that made it any better. I'm going to go over this too just quickly to get rid of any of the fibers. Just looking at it, yeah, it looks passable. This edge, I don't know that there is really any benefit in rounding it, but I usually do just kind of on general principle. You know, for no other reason than it looks kind of crummy if you paint it, because, and if it's just a straight edge, if you paint it and it's a straight edge, it tends to have, boy, that's not very good. Anyway, it tends to have a lot of the like pores of the wood sticking open, and it, I don't know, it generally looks pretty nasty if it's a straight edge and hasn't been had anything done with it. I usually end up putting some wood fill on the edges if I don't do that, if I don't round them. But I think I'm going to take the time to round this, obviously, because I'm doing it. Sometimes these are the hardest to shape because you're shaping a point that's been rounded in 3 different directions. So sometimes they are kind of hard to get true to what the shape is you want. And then you're just kind of like whittling it, but with sandpaper. All right, that looks passable. I'm going to actually sand along the plane again, just at the bottom here. Because that work I did at the beginning trying to get this flat, to kind of push the wood out a little bit. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to repeat the process with the rest of these. These, you could certainly round them if you want to. I don't think I'm going to. I'm not entirely sure why. I'm not sure I have a good justification for that, other than it's kind of a pain and they're pretty small to begin with. So I'm going to skip that. Anyway, so that'll happen off camera, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.